Alright guys, welcome to another video here on my channel. Today we're going to be reviewing my run on the weekend. I was lucky to top 8 a 160 player Legacy Showcase Challenge, which means I'm qualified for next season's Legacy Showcase qualifier, which was the same path I used to qualify for the Magic Online Championship Showcase this season. So I'm loving life at the moment, that's for sure. So there's a lot to unpack here, partially because this is an 80-card deck featuring Yorion. So let's start from the beginning. Before Christmas, I traveled to the US to play the Eternal Weekend, and my deck of choice there was blue-black 80-card Reanimator, basically this deck, without white, I guess. I ended up skipping the main event for, there was just too many players. I had other cool tournaments to play. That's not really important. The point is, I was interested in this deck before and kind of didn't really think about it for a while. Then I got a message 3 or 4 days ago by a good friend of mine who said, if I had your, I'm paraphrasing here, he didn't write in English. If I had your skill set, I would look at a blue-black strategy, but I would splash white for pest control and Swords to Plowshares. So, first of all, that was very motivating. If I had your skill set, so it's like he's giving me credit, which is, yeah, I really enjoyed that part. Like, that really gets me motivated, because before that message, I didn't know what to play, and truth be told, I would probably have played something like Goblins with the One Ring, kind of like what Medvedev is doing on Magic Online. But I wasn't very inspired leading up to this tournament. So, and I'm also not very good at keeping up with new cards. So I had to look up this card. Pest Control. Okay, so let's see. 2 mana. Destroy all non-land permanents with mana value 1 or less. So let's quickly talk a little bit about what that is in Legacy. Delver 1-drops, green 1-drops, Mox Opal, Vial, Saga tokens, Saga trinkets, Exploration, combo creatures out of Breakfast, Goblin Welder, sideboarded Grafdigger's Cage. Okay, the list was pretty long, and it has cycling, so not that bad, right? So I immediately wanted to play, I didn't think about the 80 cards, but I wanted to play 60 cards. And I couldn't fit everything I wanted. Like, I would either play a deck without Wastelands, or I would come up with a deck without the Entomb, Archon Atraxa plan, and I wanted to fit everything. So yeah, and then I tried Yorion, and I could fit everything without compromising any numbers. I'm happy with 3 days. I'm happy with 3 Murktides. I'm happy with 3 pest controls. I'm happy with the amount of lands. The blue count and the black count was good because of the land cyclers mainly. So everything just fitted, right? Also, I want to talk a little bit about Baleful Strix once we get into like the card choices. But right now, I'm trying to let you in on the path from not knowing what to play to building an 80-card deck. So the pros of having an 80-card deck, let's quickly talk about that. Actually, let's start with the cons. When you play 80 cards, you see if you have any key cards, you see them less often, right? It's just a matter of math. So that means if the format dictates that you oftentimes need a force in your opener, 80 cards is a bad idea. If the format dictates you need to see the first plow often against the field, 80 cards is a bad idea. If the format dictates you need to see your sideboard cards very, like, super often, let's say I need a Pyroblast or Force to Despair against Goblins or I'm dead, couldn't play 80 cards. Then it's just bad, right? So if the answer rather to these questions are, you can do this. It's not like, the format doesn't put that much pressure on your opening hand, then this is viable. So once I kind of checked those boxes, I got the main deck to work. I got a sideboard that I'm reasonably happy with. Okay, then I was ready to put down the list. So let's quickly go through the list. Oh, sorry, the upside. I wanted to talk about that as well. The upside of playing 80 cards is the obvious one. You have a companion, so if the game goes long, this is like another resource, right? It will come into play sometimes. Sometimes it's an extra blue card for force in the mid-game. Sometimes it's an actual late-game bomb. Cool card. So let's talk about the other upside that I actually think is the biggest, and it's something I've noticed a lot with decks like this in other formats. So this deck is asking questions proactively, potentially, right? You can go turn 1 Entomb, turn 2 Reanimate, game's over, right? So let's say you manage to do that, then what's the opponent's mental state going to be for game 2? Is it going to be, I don't want to get like cheesed again, I'm going to mulligan if I don't have a force, I'm going to mulligan if I don't have a surgical or whatever. And those scenarios where the opponent is playing to either to, reckless, and you just get to make an like Reanimator tracks that win the game, that's an advantage for you. And if they play too scared, that's also an advantage to you. So that means, let's say the opponent mulligans, they go turn 1 cage, but I just win the game with like Strix, Bowmasters, Hardcast Grief, Murktide, Force of Will, whatever. Then the opponent has fewer resources to work with because they focused in on that plan. They were hoping I drew a certain part of the deck, right? So basically, when the opponent guesses wrong, it's an advantage for me. So they can either be too careful or too reckless. So, of course, when they have Graftdigger's Cage and I draw Entomb, Reanimate, Animate Dead, that's where they have the advantage, right? So hopefully, my deck being pretty versatile, me drawing Brainstorm, stuff like that, or I can, clear some hate with pest control or whatever it is. Like, hopefully, the scenarios where the opponent's wrong are more frequent than when they're right. So that's the basic strategy and what I kind of use to justify playing this deck. So mana base is very straightforward. I quickly realized that a couple of basics could come in handy. I wanted the Surveil land, but I played 80 cards, so I wouldn't natural draw it that often, which is kind of good, because it's a card you really just want in your deck as some selection. I played 2 Scrublands because if you fetch out the first one, you get wasted. It's cool that the Troll is still a white source. And I have double black spell on my sideboard, so yeah, black sources are good. 4 Underground Seas, single copy of Tundra, so let's say I've already fetched the Tundra, it gets wasted. That means Lorn Reveal is no longer a white source, which it's just what it is, but it would be kind of cool to have second Tundra. The thing is, second Tundra is pretty bad with my sideboard plan, so I don't have that. I have all the cantrips. I have 4 Entombs, 4 Reanimates, 4 Wastelands. So Wasteland is another one where I couldn't fit it in a 60-card deck, so pretty cool to just have it. Also, Wasteland is mainly for like dark depth strategies. I feel like the pest control can clean up pretty nicely against Urza's Saga, but having both is obviously better. 4 Animate Deads, 3 copy of Daze. Daze is not my favorite card. I love to see the first copy of the card. So I think 3 is a good number. Maybe, I can see playing 4 in an 80-card deck. It's not really too important. Quad Bowmaster for obvious reasons. And then I play 4 Baleful Strix. So aside from pitching to both Force of Will and Grief, Baleful Strix is pretty good when the main Delver deck is Teamer. Against Teamer Delver, it's a card that they can't just, Bowmaster away. They kind of need to use a real card on it, maybe even Pyroblast it on the stack sometimes, which could make room for, Murktide Regent to do its thing or whatever. Baleful Strix is very solid there. Also, if my opponent has a Leyline, it's just like a solid card that can, do good things. And super late game, it's good with Yorion. So I like Baleful Strix because it checks so many boxes, pitches to both cards, even pitches to the Force of Despair on the board. So yeah, pretty nice. Force of Will is very standard. 4 Grief for either the power opening with Reanimate or Animating Dead it back later. But also just seeing what's up, sculpting your game plan. The thing about Grief is there's been a recent uptick in unfair decks, like mainly the Storm deck. So Grief is better than, let's say, I'm just playing against Pseudo Mirrors and Delver all day. Then I don't like Grief that much. I play 1 of each fatty, and I play 3 Murktides. Sometimes I just play out like a normal mid-range deck, like Plow this, Bowmaster that, Force of Will that, play Murktide Regent. That's like the bread and butter. You don't really know if you're playing against mid-range or fast combo, really, from the opponent's point of view. Sideboard, I'm addressing Goblins. The thing about Hydroblast is it's better than Force of Despair against Mono Red Prison, and it's part of my sideboard plan against Delver. So yeah, Force of Despair. I like the mix. Let's say I'm drawing 2 hate cards against Goblins. I want to draw 1 of each. That's like my only logic. Doughty Voidwalker is good in any pseudo mirror and against Delver. And, just switching plans in general. The opponent starts with the Leyline in play or plays the Grafdigger's Cage. You can just play Voidwalker. It's quite good. Then I have a couple of Narsets because I figured the control matchup would be very, very tough. Beanstalk mainly. A couple of Force Negations to try and not die to fast decks. And then a couple of Triumphs to, again, circumvent some hate, make my deck hard to play against. Do they need the Force? Do they need the Plow? What do they need to win, right? What do they need in order to win? Yeah. And yeah, that's about it for the deck check. The numbers are very smooth here. I didn't do many, if any, compromises at all. I was able to fit everything. Enough blue cards, enough black cards, enough blue sources. Like, the mana base is also good. I have my Wasteland, I have my Broken Element, I have a decent sideboard playing against the field. So yeah, I was feeling pretty good. I practiced in a challenge on Saturday. I lost round 1, won 4 straight, and then lost the winning. So very decent result. The bad thing about that is I was susceptible to being scouted for the actual showcase challenge, and I think I lost a little bit of percentage points on that, but that's how it is. I wanted to take it for a spin. This was actually very hard for me to determine, is this deck insane or is this deck like bad and I'm just, in love with the idea. I oftentimes talk about this, like Magic being an emotional game. Like, imagine you build this and you love to play, this kind of deck. Your heart kind of tells you that, yeah, this deck is insane, right? But thankfully I was right this time, or I just ran hot in a couple of tournaments, who knows. But with that being said, I think that'll do it for the deck tech. I'll go through replays from all of my rounds leading up to my elimination, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the matches. All right, this is round 1 of the Legacy Showcase Challenge. We have about 160 people, and that means 8 rounds, so I need 7-1 to top 8. Pretty tall order. Let's see what we can do here. This is game 3. I'm playing a pseudo mirror, basically against the 60-card version. And yeah, I have a decent hand. I have a Forcible and some Wastelands. Let's see what's going on here. Opponent with turn 1 Ponder. I draw Skewers. I decided to start Wastelanding here. It's like, you can make a case either way, especially after your opponent just resolved a Ponder. But I think with double Wasteland, there is a chance I can make my opponent not play Magic and I can win. So, funnily enough, the opponent does not have a land for this turn. Let's see what I can draw. Keep spamming the button. I draw another land, so yeah, 2 lands in a row, definitely not ideal. I can play Undercity, Surveil away another land. So now things get interesting, right? The opponent goes Grief after finding the land. The thing about this is, when a hand like this doesn't play out land, it means the opponent has a lot of potentially broken stuff. And I saw game 2 that my opponent kept in Entomb, which is not a strategy I recommend. So let's see how I sideboard. I sideboard out Pest Control, all of my Entombs, my Fatties, because between Troll being in both decks and the Reanimation cards just being good in general, like creature, I play a Bowmaster, it gets dazed, or what do I know? We both have Grief, etc. Like, the Reanimation spells are good on their own, and I don't want to be the one using an Entomb to then lose the Counter War and lose to a Reanimation spell, right? Then I just used more resources to get there. But my opponent showed game 2 that they don't have a problem being the Entomb deck, which is high variance for sure. Yeah, so I draw basically another land. So my opponent doesn't know about the Lorn Revealed. I play Baleful Strix into one of the worst cards in my deck. My opponent goes End Step Entomb, reanimates Archon. Archon hits the field, Strix gone, Triumph hits the yard. I draw the Plow I need to stay in this game. Land cycle for the Tundra. Pass. I play around Force of Negation here because The opponent might have Force Negation in, depending on like how they analyze the matchup. So I don't want to plow now. I want to pass the turn and do it on the opponent's upkeep. That means Force Negation is not castable via neither Hardcast nor Pitch. So I think that's just good timing. I plow. The opponent forces. Attack. I discard an island. My opponent reanimates a Grief, gets rid of my Bowmaster. I'm at 8. My White Source gets wasted. What can I draw? I need like the perfect brainstorm into like White Source Plow and then rebuild. That's not the case. I draw Land Cycler and it's over. Like now I'm 0-1. Remember, this was game 3 of round 1, so now I'm 0-1. I have to rattle off 7 straight to top 8. So yeah, it's going to be a long climb, but I'm up for the challenge. I like to play my deck. We just got owned here. The opponent had a hand where whenever they find the second land, they can kind of explode, go Grief, clear the way, Entomb, Reanimate. And yeah, my hand didn't do enough to stop it. I had a Force of Will and a Plow, basically. So yeah, just good old thrashing. Let's see if we can come back with some wins here. All right, I'm currently in round 2. I'm up a game. I play against the new Storm deck, the Bowmasters, Entomb. I was about to call it Days Undoing. That's definitely not the one. Echo of Eons, that's the one. I just won a weird game 1 where the opponent went something like double Dark Ritual, double Bowmasters turn 1, and I dealt with them with my own Bowmasters and Plow and just easily won. But now, let's see. The Storm deck's on a Multi 6 and has a Leyline, so that's kind of like... I don't want to say it's like I drew it up, but it's definitely something that this deck is fine with. The opponent going down on resources to fight the yard. I have a hand with double Reanimate, so here I'm going to turn 1 Brainstorm because I play Grief and I play against the combo deck. Also, my opponent plays Bowmaster, so numerous reasons. Entomb is a terrible card. Let's see what I get rid of. I believe I hide. Yeah, I hide the Narset on top because let's say my opponent thought seizes me. Like the Narset's just very good against the Echo of Eons, right? And here, sure, I can lose a Ponder, but that's fine. I'm going to draw one of the cards anyway. Might as well hide the best one. Let's see here. I get Thought Seized on... Huh. My opponent takes Reanimate. Ah, I see. Okay. The opponent Thought Seized my Reanimate. Then goes Bowmaster. Let's see how I respond. I believe I don't do anything here. I don't play the Ponder out. I take 2 damage. I guess I fetch a Surveil land. Yeah, fetch a Surveil land. I get rid of Brainstorm. Now I play the Narset. So what do I do with the Narset? I plus the Narset, get a like kind of bad Ponder. The thing is, Narset against Bowmasters is kind of bad because a lot of the cards that can hit from it are gonna be cantrips. So maybe I shouldn't have activated there. I'm not sure. Right, this was a bit fast. So I cast Ponder and I shuffle. Let's see what I do here. Maybe I do it again. No, I take Yorion into hand. Yeah, at this point, the opponent has 2 cards in hand, 2 lands, and some kind of sad aggro, but Yorion would just stop that instantaneously, so I like putting Yorion to hand here. Yorion is very good in the scrappy games against Leyline in general. Maybe not very good, but it's a cool tool to have, right? Better than not having it. I have a Daze as protection here, which is not impressive. I get hit down to 11 here. I think that's decent. The opponent passes the turn with 3 mana. I draw Narset, but I decide to go for Yorion here, I believe. Not sure that's good play. I'm trying to stop the aggro. Maybe I should have gone Narset there. Narset don't activate? Oh, okay. Now things can get iffy. The opponent goes Entomb into Echo. And then they play Candy Trail. Scrying, they like one of the cards. They draw into the card. So now it's a very good situation for me. My opponent decides to play out Petal here and respect Grief more than Daze. So I get to Daze on turn 6. Daze a Petal on turn 6. which was the blue mana my opponent needed. Like, just incredibly awesome. I draw a Wasteland, a Narset. I don't play Narset, and my opponent concedes the game here because their only way of winning is kind of like echoing out of the yard, but now I have Narset. I've stabilized the aggression with Yorion. I think maybe I should have played Narset out a turn before. Narset gets hit down to 2, and then when I play Yorion, I kind of flick the Narset up to 5 again. I think that would be a better play. But yeah, I was able to beat the ley line because my opponent didn't have much else going on, right? A Bowmasters and a Thoughtseize, like we can beat that with our just fair deck, right? It's a bit tough, I think, when to play Ponder into the Bowmaster and when not to do it. Maybe I was too scared this game. Not entirely sure, but yeah, now we got to win on the board. We're 1-1, and we're trying to climb upwards. Let's see if we can do it. Okay, this is round 3, game 3. I'm playing against the green-black deck, the Cradle Control. And this hand is not good. I end up mulliganing, and what do I see here? I see some potential. I see some turn 2 troll potential. I have a force. But I do have to put 1 card back. I can't remember what I put back, actually. Maybe I put the force back? I put Force of Will back. Okay. Let's see. My opponent's also on a Mulder 6. I played turn 1 Surveil. I can put a troll into the yard, which is kind of cool, right? Now I have the potential to go turn 2 Animate Dead. What does the opponent do? Zenith for Arbor. Exile Spirit Guide, play Reclaimer. So, unfortunately, Pest Control doesn't kill Dryad Arbor because it's a land. Otherwise, that would be insane. Let's see what I draw here. I believe I draw Grief, if I remember correctly. I draw Grief. Okay, so new plan, I guess. I want to go Grief pitching Baleful Strix, take my opponent's best card out of the 3 remaining. Depending on what's there, I can animate Dead on the Grief or the Troll, or I can Wasteland my opponent and kind of see what's most important. So let's see what the opponent has in hand. Grief. You want to stack it so Grief doesn't go to the yard in case, let's say, my opponent's hand is, Faerie Macabre, that's a good one. Let's say my opponent's hand is like Faerie Macabre, 2 lands. If the Grief is in the yard, they get to kill both of them. That would be a disaster. My opponent has Fiend Artisan and Mesmeric Fiend. Both are quite strong right now, so I actually go for taking one of them, reanimating, taking the other. And now I have a 2-2 in play. Opponent with 0 cards in hand, like very, very low resource game. Opponent passes. So worth noting is I can't Wasteland proactively as long as my opponent has 2 mana and Elvish Reclaimer. So I think what I end up doing here is just taking my medicine here. I attack for 2 menace. The opponent doesn't want anything to do with that. Let's say I have a Bowmaster. The opponent double blocks, and I have a Bowmaster. Total blowout. So I end up just casting Pest Control here. Just kill the Reclaimer. The opponent will activate in response. I believe they go for a Surveil land. And I just Wasteland their Black Source. They have a Dryad Arbor versus whatever I have going on. This is like a very, very low resource game because of the mulligans, the griefing. Opponent plays Forest, attacks for 1. I like my spot. Baleful Strix is a great draw. I can develop my mana, complete the, let's call it a wheel, like the Esper, 3 different duels. It's just, when you have 3 lands against a deck, non-wasteland deck is just the best to have those 3 duels. I draw Bowmasters, which looks pretty darn good to me. Opponent's life total is slowly but surely going down. The opponent plays a Soulless Jailer, so I guess it's no reanimation for me, but as you know, I don't really care too much about that. I have a decent plan B. I kill the Dryad Arbor with Bowmasters, keep attacking. The opponent plays a Noble, still just taking a lot of chip damage. I brainstorm, find a plow. I have a Murktide for next turn. I plow the Noble simply to just hold my opponent. I don't want to lose to like Cradle, Natural Order, something along those lines. My opponent doesn't have any plays. And yeah, this is just over even without the Murktide, I guess. I get in for 4 more and play the Murktide, and I believe that does it this game. The Soulless Jailer is cool against my unfair plan, but when I just have these cards turning sideways, removal with Pest Infestation and Plow, it's just pretty awesome, right? Believe I cycle here, just optimize a little tiny bit. Like leave an extra card in the yard for future Murktides in case my opponent has some kind of miracle at 4 life. Here's a Murktide, and that's game over. So we're now 2-1. Still hopeful, still grinding, still having fun. Let's see if we can keep it up. All right, round 4. I'm on to play game 3 against Borrow's Initiative. So again, playing for elimination, that's a theme. If you start the tournament 0-1, you play for elimination every round. So we hope to keep it going. So yeah, here I'm going to turn 1 Grief. Basically, this hand is not great or anything, but it's a hand that can maybe make my opponent not play Magic for X amount of turns with the combination of Grief and Wasteland, and I can kind of draw into the game with, I don't know, cantrips into a Murktide, something, right? That's the theory, at least. And if I draw any Reanimation, I can Grief again, so this hand is not insane. But the opponent, I was able to take a Hearse out of the opponent's hand, leave them with Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, Touch the Spirit Realm, and Double Solitude. So it looks like at least I've achieved the whole let's buy some time. The opponent draws a Plains, play that out. Don't want to get wasted, it's correct. So they give up the info, but they play the superior land out. I fetch, and I keep a card on top. Can't remember which it was, though. Oh, it's the Force of Will. So yeah, more of the same, I guess. Now I'm willing to pitch my only other non-land card, or, you know, get to Yorion. Let's see. Let's see. Opponent plays Ancient Tomb Pass. Let's see what I draw. There's also a case I'm supposed to wasteland my opponent here. Can't remember what I do. Maybe I should take Yorion to hand here. Kind of tough. The opponent's thinking about what to do. End up passing the turn, I believe. Right now, my opponent's holding up Pitch Solitude, Blink the Solitude. Come on, Magic Online. You can do it. I draw land. I end up wastelanding my opponent here because I want it to be kind of awkward, but they have another land, which is kind of sad. Cavern named Human. So now my Murktide isn't, my Force Will, rather, isn't reliable. And in the meantime, my opponent found Uncounterable Containment Priest. So my yard is kind of locked down here, and the opponent can commence the beatdown. This is another very scrappy game where neither player had an insane draw. So you kind of have to find something deep down to try and tailor a game plan that can win. I play with more or less open info here. I can't remember if they play out City of Traders. I believe they do, actually. And even a Chrome Mox, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so here's Chrome Mox and City. So now I know my opponent's hand. They end up pitching the Touch the Spirit Realm. So my opponent's hand is Double Solitude. They're basically saying, if you don't do anything, fine, then I'll just keep attacking with a 2-2. But if you do something or send a creature, I'm ready to flash down this Hardcasted Solitude and get rid of it. Brainstorm wasn't the best, if I remember correctly. Sorry, I was too fast there. I can play Baleful Strix, which is kind of cool because my opponent's going to play Solitude here, or Respect Days. That's like the two options. If they respect Days, perfect. If they don't respect Days, I will Force Will pitch Yorion to keep this in play, mainly because I don't want to lose to the first initiative creature. With a Cavern on Human, initiative creatures are going to resolve, and I want to fire and play for that situation. And if my opponent attacks, I'll happily take the trade because that means my Reanimator plan is open for business. So here comes the Solitude. I force pitch Yorion, which isn't ideal at all, but I think it's what I have to do in this situation. Then I have a Murktide in my hand, and my opponent has a one Solitude left. So basically, if my opponent plays Solitude, kill Strix, attack, that means I get to stick Murktide. That's the theory here. I'm a bit flooded, so I need to draw something. My opponent likes the graveyard aspect. I draw a Brainstorm, which is a good draw. I believe what I put back here is 2 lands. So Animate Dead doesn't do anything yet, but it could in the future. Here I believe I cycle Pest Control. So small error here by me, I think. I was supposed to fetch Tundra so I could keep up Tundra Underground Sea, because I could have found Swords to Plowshares on the cycle here. Here, I believe I slow roll my Murktide. I still have the same theory where I want my opponent to, use that Solitude so I can stick the Murktide later. So let's see if they bite on this end step. My opponent has Solitude and 1 Unknown in hand at this point. And obviously that's not like... That's most likely not a great card. Here comes the Solitude. Strix is gone. I'm going to take 5 here, but I'm going to have a Murktide in play. I draw Daze. I wasteland my opponent's Cavern, so now I can actually Daze a 4-drop if I'm lucky. The white 4-drop. At this point of the game, I think it's important to kind of identify what can you beat and what can't you beat. And then you try to maximize your own play, targeting what you actually can beat. It doesn't make any sense to not give yourself a chance. I think identifying what you can actually beat is very, very important in these bad games where it's looking grim. So my opponent has a very healthy life total, but I get the desired effect here. I'm sticking my Murktide, and I'm kind of buying time. It's the same philosophy about the Grief and the Wasteland early. Bowmasters is a sick draw, because now I can attack. If my opponent attacks back, I can flash in Bowmasters and maybe get rid of the Priest, and I think if I do that, Animate Dead on my opponent's Solitude will be the knockout punch. So that's my mindset at this point. What's the absolute worst that can happen here? Just give a think for a second here. What's the absolute worst that can happen for me? I think this is the absolute worst that can happen for me, because when the opponent plays out a land to play around Daze, nice Daze, and this card is a Cleric, so now the opponent is attacking with a Protection from Creatures. And I can't get rid of the Priest. That means Daze is dead, Animate Dead is dead. Looking very, very grim here. The opponent has the initiative, searches up a mountain for next turn. Let's see. The opponent was a bit in the tank here. I don't blame them. So was I, at multiple times. I like to just take my time, take a deep breath. I'm not trying to slow roll anybody. I'm not trying to waste anybody's time. I'm trying to... When I get eliminated from a tournament, I want to look back and, okay, I did my absolute best. I didn't rush anything. So that's why the replays can sometimes be a little bit clunky if there's a lot of waiting time. The opponent attacks here, triggers a mill over Fable. So what I do here is I use the Bowmasters to ping the Solitude for 1 and block the Orc Army to get rid of it. Opponent goes to 18, I go to 8. So I'm in trouble here. My opponent has protection from creatures. I draw Baleful Strix, which is a good draw. I draw into Pest Control, which isn't a good draw. I attack for 8. I get the initiative, opponent's at 10. Believe I'm cycling this pest control. Yeah, I'm cycling the pest control. Play out island. I now have Force of Will in case something weird happens. Can't use Animate Dead because of Containment Priest. Worth noting is my opponent only has protection from creatures on one of them. So that helps a little bit in the damage race, but not a lot because this is unblockable. And next step is the trap, deal 5. So I'm in trouble here. The opponent decides to grow the Dungeoneer, mainly to, get closer to the trap. Here's a Fable. I decide to force it. Not really sure about the pros and cons there. So here is... I draw Ponder for the turn, and I'm very excited. So my opponent's at 10. I have 9 damage in the air, so I need to find a Bowmasters. What I didn't realize was if I attack first, put my opponent to 1, I can choose to go to the Lost Well, scry 2 before pondering. That means I see way more cards. I didn't think about this, but I was lucky and I found the Bowmasters for lethal. But yeah, that was costly. I didn't give myself the best chance to win, but I won anyway, which is, it's happy circumstances, but I really want to, play well. I want to give myself the best chance, and I didn't do that. I just found the nuts, and the game's over. 9 in the air, opponents at 1. I wish I thought about the scry. That would have been sick. So I end up winning this game and advancing. That was a crazy game. Really didn't think I could beat the Dungeoneer, but turns out the big Murktide, I planned this like many, many, many turns ago to try and exhaust the 2 Solitudes with Force of Will and Baleful Strix. Then to end up winning the game flying in for lethal with this creature is just... That's what Magic's all about. I didn't play perfect on the last turn, unfortunately. That would have looked prettier, but we got it done and we get to march on. See you for the next round. All right, more elimination Magic. For you guys viewing pleasure. Game 3 against Goblins on the draw. Let's hope I don't get smoked. Okay, the opponent with Ancient Tomb pass. I like that. The opponent could have gone Chalice. That would have been terrible. If the opponent goes Hearse, it's also annoying. The opponent goes, I don't know, something else. Like, put pressure on. There's definitely a lot of stuff there. Let's see what I can draw. I have multiple options. So I draw Murktide, which is a terrible draw. I want to go for Grief here to see if I... Oh, let's quickly reveal that hand. So my opponent had Namesticker, Mountain, Spirit Guide, City, double Muxus. So basically, I now know that if I take the sticker and I wasteland my opponent's Ancient Tomb, there's quite a lot of way up to Muxus. So that's my theory here. Opponent plays another Ancient Tomb that they just drew. I fetch my... No, I don't fetch my Sewers. I play Sewers. I mill over Plow because simply I can't cast it. I have 3 Murktides in hand, which is horrible. I mean, the first one is awesome, but the second is terrible. So now Mountain's gone. And now I then drew the White Source, which is kind of funny. The opponent found, yeah, Ancient Tomb, so I know a Muxus is coming. They pitch a Spirit Guide to go Muxus. Hydroblasting, that is awesome. The opponent has a Muxus and 2 Unknowns in hand. Let's see what your boy can draw. I thin my deck here. Basically, I draw Animate Dead. So what do I want to do? I think the right play here is to Animate Dead my Grief to take care of that Muxus. Let's see what the 2 other cards in my opponent's hand are. Ooh, that was double Leyline of the Void. So Muxus down, double Leyline as my opponent's last 2 cards. I'm looking very strong here. Opponent with no play. I attack. I Swamp Cycle. I play I saw my opponent had Blood Moon in game 2, so I fetch a basic here. It's just a good luxury to have. I can still cast all of my cards, and if I get Blood Moon, I can still play Dimir Control, right? Exile my whole yard except the troll. Play a 5/5 Murky. I draw Negation. I put Yoran to hand, attack for 7, and it looks like it's over for the Goblins player here. With the two ley lines drawn after turn 0. That's not what you want to see in a elimination match. Force and Negation covers something like the One Ring. Right now, I would be scared about like Muxus, because if my opponent has a good Muxus trigger, opponent's at 7. They might have blockers for the Grief. They need 2 blockers back. And then I might die on the backswing. Let's see, is there any way I can find lethal if I draw like Brainstorm into a fetch land? Let's see, Brainstorm 2 cards in the yard. Fetch land 3. Yeah, Brainstorm into a fetch land. Then I can put my opponent to 1 with second Murktide. Let's see what this is. 6, 7, 8. Oh, I remember this. So let's see here. Yeah, this is actually a removal spell for both of my creatures. So ironically, this Force of Negation was just insane in this spot. And I can just force for the win. Yeah, I actually forgot about that detail. Yeah, then the game's just over. Alright, so we even got to win round 5 here against Goblins. Got pretty lucky. Opponent skipped a few draw steps, but, you know, that's what we live with, the ups and the downs. And we get to keep on fighting in the next round. Alright, more elimination magic. I'm currently up 1-0 against one of my favorite players. I think he's just very, very good. Isaac Bullwinkle. He's playing Delver. I'm up a game. I have an unplayable hand. I need to mulligan. This is an easy keep. I believe I get rid of pest control here to have, you know, sustainable mana, to have some backdoor reanimation, answer to creature, answer to Chandler or Pyroblast. I get rid of pest control. There's also the like the context that I play Bowmaster, so maybe Isaac has sideboarded out Delvers. That's like a strategy some players use, but not him. Turn 1 Delver with Bauble. He plays the Bauble correctly in order to improve the odds of flipping Delver. I believe I don't plow this Delver. I believe I can beat the Delver, or at least, you know, take a hit or two, see where my opponent's at. I draw another land, so obviously keeping the pest control would have been way better, but I didn't have any way of knowing that at the time. I play Fetch Pass. I don't respect Stifle out of that deck. I'm willing to see what's going on with the Delver before deciding on the Plow. Looks like I have the luxury to play around days, so that's my mindset at the moment. My opponent ends up flipping the Delver with Brainstorm. I believe I take the damage here and fetch a Surveil land. Here's a Brainstorm and a fetch. Surveil. I see Entomb, so let's talk about this a little bit. That Entomb with my Reanimate in hand is a 1-2 punch that most likely wins the game, but against Surgical or Force Will, it doesn't do anything. So let's see how this plays out. So what can we do here? I can't do anything about a Surgical. What can I do about a Force Will? So what I do here is my opponent just Brainstormed. They didn't fetch. I passed a turn. I have the choice here. Should I plow the Delver on upkeep before the opponent draws the next card? And that was the like obvious thing to do, but I think I came up with a better play. I let my opponent draw the card that they put there and they think is good. I don't believe that they would ever like put a Force of Will underneath there and not have access to it right now, or something like a spell pierce or whatever. Like, that just wouldn't happen. So I'm trying to find a way to get this card Force of Will, and I think it's better if I let my opponent draw the card that they planned on when they knew the Delver was surviving. And now I do it when they can't, manipulate whatever they put back. So let's see. Fetch Scrubland, Plow the Delver. I just expect this to resolve and life goes on. But it looks like the opponent has a very, very specific hand where if they force this, that's the third card in the yard. Fetch is fourth card in the yard. The opponent wastelands me here, I believe. Wasteland on Scrubland. Fetch. Play Murktide Regent. One card left. So at this stage, I don't have any more plays. I need to entomb and hope the Reanimator resolves. My alternative is just losing, right? So now we just check to see if my opponent has Daze or Surgical as the last cards. I cast Entomb on end step, it resolves, so at this point it can only be Surgical, draw, play a land, play Reanimate on the Archon. The reason why I take Archon here is, let's say I take Atraxa and I get like a bad Atraxa, I'm at 5. All the opponent needs to have is like Pyroblast the Atraxa, attack for lethal. So I take the Archon because it kills a creature for sure, drains my opponent's hand, and gives me a little bit of life buff. So I take 8 from the Reanimate down to 4. Then I go up to 7. It's kind of impossible for the opponent to kill me there. And there's the concession. So very, very high octane here. The opponent had a very specific hand where forcing that plow made it so that they could exactly play out Murktide Regent and keeping up the pressure. I don't blame them at all. It didn't work out this time. I got to win with the 1-2 punch. And we're still alive in the tournament. See you next round. All right. This is game 2 of my round 7. Currently 5-1. I'm up a game versus goblins. And yeah, this is not a hand I can keep. Oh, no, this is not versus goblins. Let me think. I guess we'll see in a bit. This is probably against the mirror, I would guess. Yeah, this is against the 60-card mirror. I have a decent hand here. I think I decide to wasteland here. It's not a perfect wasteland, but I think it's okay. Let's see what the opponent does. They stifle. Yeah. I remember this. Ooh, stifle. This is brutal. So the opponent had 2 lands and I'm at 0. Very, very brutal. Note that I do it on my opponent's upkeep to play around, steal a mana, basically. The opponent could have gone like Voidwalker or whatever here, or hold up Bowmasters. So let's see how I respond here. In a matchup like this, I usually cast Brainstorm at like, let's say you look at it in a vacuum at bad moments. Let's see if this is one of those. My strategy for the mirror is I bring out Entombs and Pest Control, but I think we already went over that. I fetch and I Brainstorm on my own turn here. I have a Reanimate and a Troll. So the cool thing is, you have to think about grief. You have to think about, if you put the Troll in the yard and you don't try and reanimate it, all of a sudden the opponent can reanimate, and that's kind of the problem. So the opponent griefs away Reanimate, then cast Brainstorm. I am generally a fan of doing it the other way around. I hit my Voidwalker with Brainstorm, anticipating a grief. I don't want to play it in today's, so I delay my play 1 turn, which it has pros and cons, to be honest. If I get wastelanded, I just kind of wasted a lot of time. If I have to play in today's later in the game, maybe it's not that great. And here's a Hearse. So the cool thing about this situation is the Hearse in this matchup, you don't really want to use it proactively in a spot like this. you want to like counter a reanimation spell, because remember, there's a grief in the opponent's graveyard. So if they just go, I'll exile 2 instants, pass, then you're bad against a reanimation spell. So that's good news for me because I have a Murktide Regent in hand. So what I do here is I just play out a big Regent, and I think that version only has like, I don't know, 2 copies of Brazen Borrower in the 75 as answers, so I like my spot. Well, here it is, Petty Theft on the Murktide, so I guess nice try. This gives me a window to go Voidwalker, play land. So funnily enough, I'm like, huh, Hardcast Troll doesn't seem that unrealistic from here, so I'm just going to hang on to that guy, see if we can play it later. The opponent plays Wasteland, they don't want to use it though. So I'm thinking the opponent's representing Bowmasters here. Let's see if that's the case. I fetch my Surveil. I see a new troll, but I get rid of that troll. Yeah, I get rid of that troll. Because if my opponent Wastelands me, I'm so far from casting that it's just not good. Let's see here. Here I actually find a window to just play a 3/3 Murktide. That's not terrible. I do play into Daze, to my point earlier about if I play around Daze turn 3, then what about turn 6, right? But I think this is decent with the hearse and all. It was a dead card anyway. So now worth noting is I have a Daze in exile with Voidwalker alongside a Ponder. See if that comes into play. I'm currently clocking my opponent pretty well. My opponent plays a Voidwalker. So this Daze land. This Wasteland right now is making sure that my Daze is not live against the Voidwalker. Very, very tight play by the opponent. It was so tempting to just fire off the Wasteland, right? So now it's Voidwalker versus Voidwalker, and the opponent has a Brazen coming, so I'm not super confident here. This is funny, like now it's just slam troll time. Do you have second Daze? That's basically what I'm asking here. My opponent does not have second Daze, and I don't attack. Remember, shadows aren't unblockable. Shadows can kind of brawl with each other, and I think when I'm ahead with the troll, I don't want to trade off Voidwalkers. Because that's like the most obvious comeback for the opponent. Let's see what the opponent can draw. Also a question if they want to hearse their own yard. They do. Just remember, this hearse can get quote-unquote reanimated anytime. Here's another Ponder. Remember, I still have a Daze in exile with Voidwalker. What I do here is I Daze from hand. Pretty nice. Just get the Surveil land back. Daze the Bowmasters. Mainly because that Bowmasters could, you know, stop me from, you know, drawing cantrips. It can make the troll, it can kind of block the troll. So, yeah, and Daze is very likely to be a dead card. Plus, I get a little bit of value when I get my land back, so pretty standard Daze there for me. Attacking for 6, opponent's down to 10. Put Yorion to hand, wasteland my opponent, kind of keep them down here. And the opponent concedes here at a peculiar time, I would say. But the opponent's in big trouble here. My opponent can't even, you know, use Wasteland to keep me from Yorion. I'm chucking away with Troll. So yeah, like not very typical, but still within the deck's range. You're hardcasting Troll. You have Yorion. You have Voidwalker. The opponent controlled the graveyards, which is awesome, but my deck just had so much more to offer, and yeah, I mean, here we are, staring down the barrel of a winning match for the top 8 after an 0-1 start. Right now I'm 6-1 at this point, so the next one is the important one that can punch the ticket to the promised land. Let's see what happens. Alright, I'm up a game. This is game 2, round 8. I'm 6-1. If I win, I top 8. I qualify for the next showcase qualifier. If I lose, I get a nice bag of prizes and a pat on the shoulders. Well done, you did great. You're 6-2 at a big event. That's also good, right? So only good things. What I always do in these spots is take in a breath of fresh air, and I appreciate the moment. Like, a lot of players wanted to be in the situation where round 8 you play for all the marbles, but only a few, a dozen of us were in that position, right? It's truly magical, and even though I have many hundreds of top 8 finishes under my belt, I still enjoy every one of them, and the opportunity to get to play the last round for all the marbles, that's just a huge privilege. So that's always the first thing I do. And then I basically try and treat this match as any other match, like whether I'm playing a random league match or it's round 1 of a tournament or I'm 2-3 playing for minimum prices, whatever the case may be. I try and approach each match of Magic the same. I don't care if I'm up a game, down a game, if it's an elimination or not. I really try and separate the emotions that can affect my play and what I actually think is like good solid Magic that I would do over and over, and then over time I'll get good results because it's the right play. But it's Magic the Gathering, anything can happen in the short term. That's just a small rant before we get into the action here. So what do we have in this opener? We're on the play against in the draw rather against goblins. We can easily get smoked and overrun. My opponent has a setup like land pass or something like Chalice. Our counterplay against Chalice is we have Daze, Cycle, Animate Dead. That's not terrible. So yeah, I keep this hand. I think it's impossible to beat everything, like have all angles covered. So I in general, I'm less likely to like mulligan if I don't think it's realistic to get there. So my opponent has kind of a, let's say, could be better, could be worse for me. I guess this is like above average for the opponent. They present a Bombardier turn 1. Really have to mind my life total. I draw a Hydroblast, which is maybe the best draw in my deck. Not sure. I play Delta out with the intention to fetch a Tundra if I need to Hydroblast. I might, depending on what the opponent does, I might cycle Troll and go for Animate Dead. Let's see. If I remember correctly, my opponent presents me with a very tough choice. Here's a Battlecry Goblin. So, first of all, I can counter that card. Then my opponent just has a 2-2 in play. But I don't think that makes sense. So, I believe I let this resolve. If my opponent plays a land, activates. And now it's like, okay, fair enough, buddy. If you get to +1/+0, the whole team, that means even another goblin gets in. And then it can kind of get iffy. So what I do here to stem the bleeding is I kill the Bombardier and I take 3 damage. So that means I can't troll turn 2, but I kind of stem the bleeding. So whether you want to stem the bleeding or you want to play a faster troll is sometimes the same thing. Because it's like, am I winning a turn faster or am I losing a turn slower? It can kind of even out, if that makes sense. Let's see if I draw anything here. I draw a Ponder. So what I do is I plan to brainstorm main phase because I really want to find a grief to you know, pick my opponent's hand apart. And if I don't, I most likely just cycle Troll this turn and Animate Dead next turn. I draw a terrible brainstorm, put back 2 Trolls, play my land and pass. So now I have a second Daze, but I can only Daze once because of the swamp. Battlecry Goblin attacks. I believe my opponent activates twice here to put me to 10. So now I'm at 10 life. The opponent's at 14. Ancient Tomb pass. So what does this tell me about the opponent's hand? They had 6 mana, but they didn't do anything with it. Either it's like Muxus really respect Daze. This is my dream right now. The opponent goes next turn, like Mountain, play Muxus, get double Dazed. Like, that's the dream right now. Let's see if that dream becomes reality. Cycle for Underground Sea. I draw Reanimate, which is exciting. So I can reanimate my opponent's Bombardier, but I don't think that holds too much value right now. So I think what I end up doing is I Animate Dead my Troll, and then I Ponder for interaction. And I should have done it in the other order, because depending on what I see on this Ponder, could change. Ended up shuffling here because it kind of makes the number of cards I'm looking for. It's basically like Force of Will, Grief, black force. Like, it's kind of a narrow set of cards that I'm looking for here. So my random draw is Baleful Strix, doesn't do anything. Opponent plays a Bombardier, so... Opponent's at 12. If this Bombardier resolves, my opponent pumps the team. All of a sudden I have to block, and the opponent can kind of finish off the troll. Let's say opponent activates, I block the Battlecry Goblin to not die. Then the opponent can fling the token or Chrome Mox afterwards to kill the troll, and then I don't really have a game plan. So I end up finding a line here where if I go double days, my opponent will pay with this Ancient Tomb, go down to 10, and then next turn, I can attack for 5 with the troll. But before I do that, I can reanimate my opponent's Bombardier, attack with it, and fling the troll for lethal. Let's see if we get to execute that plan. Days, the opponent pays. At days once more, the opponent pays. So opponent's at 10. I'm at 10. So here, I don't really know what my opponent's going to do. They didn't have the land, which was kind of good for me. So here's a cool play. My opponent, if they have Spirit Guide here, which is the card I'm trying to play around, the opponent could go Spirit Guide, activate, attack with both, also get a token. I think that would be lethal. That's lethal. That would be lethal if that's the case, because it's 6 damage from Battlecry Goblin and Bombardier after the activation, and then the opponent can fling the Battlecry Goblin, and I die. So now I have to block. I actually think this is a good play by the opponent if they have the Spirit Guide, because it would be very, very tempting to just take this damage. Like, on table, the opponent has 1 red. They attack here, I take the damage, that's 4. Then the opponent can fling this card afterwards, which would be +4, so I would be at 2 life. But because of the combination of the fear of Spirit Guide in my opponent's hand, and that I want life to play with from Reanimate, I need to block here. By blocking here, if my opponent has the Spirit Guide, they can kill the troll, but it's better than dying. My opponent ends up flinging Battlecry Goblin to my face before damage, and at this point, I kind of feel like I have the game, because that puts me at the magic number 4. I have Reanimate, which will put me at 1, attack with Bombardier and Troll, put my opponent at 4, then fling the Troll for 8 damage. I draw Plow here for nice insurance in case my opponent has Macabre, which they have in their sideboard. If my opponent has Macabre here, I can attack for 5, and then Plow the Broadside Bombardier, and then I have 4 life to play with. The opponent needs to find 1 more Bombardier, which would be number 3, so I'm pretty happy with life here. At this point, my opponent shoots me the message, good games, good luck in the top 8, and I can't really believe at this point that I rattled off 7 straight. After losing round 1, I didn't lose faith. I won 7 straight. I clinched another Legacy Showcase top 8 with a deck I built myself. Yeah, it just feels so good. It's really hard to explain. I think I narrowed it down to what I really like the most is when I win Masters of Magic, I get to play more Magic, right? That's like the boon. The boon is I got to top 8. 150 players, other players didn't. So it was like a sought-after thing to do. It's just what I love the most about Magic. And it's the same. Now I have a 30-person tournament coming up in a few months. Big cross in the calendar. Really looking forward to that. And that's kind of what Magic is all about for me. It's like punching my tickets to the next thing, right? So actually, my quarterfinals, I just got smoked 2 fast games by Reanimator, so I'm not really going to showcase those. It was like normal Reanimator things. I didn't have the force at the right time. My opponent played well in the draw go, setting up for a good turn where they could go like Grief, Entomb, Reanimate, and overwhelm me. My opponent played great. I didn't play great or didn't have many choices. So that's just what happens sometimes in any Magic format, really. So I'm not going to bore you with that match, but I got completely destroyed in 2 quick games. I'm just so happy about the result. Clinching another top 8. with a cool deck. Hope you guys enjoyed the walkthrough. I tried to pick the deciding games and the deciding spots. I tried to showcase great plays. I tried to showcase trying to isolate what you can actually beat. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. I also showcase some suboptimal lines which is really where replays can help you. So I don't have any problem like showcasing mistakes or suboptimal plays or being open to new ideas. So please feel free if you spotted anything else that I missed. And yeah, thanks so much for the support. Hopefully this is just one of many cool review videos in the future from Big Finishes. Thanks so much for watching. Can't believe all the support. I love it. And I'll see you next time, guys.